Hey, Gabel here. It's been a while, but I'm back, and today it's time to look at Burnice. She is an incredible Anomaly DPS that does some insane damage on and off field. So pick your main Anomaly damage dealer, add off-field damage and free disorders on top, and just imagine the destruction. We will check out how her kit works and why it's so powerful, look at combos, then look at her best drive discs and wenjins, and then teams. This was all recorded on the Creator Beta server. Like and sub and share if you enjoyed this video, and let's begin. Burnice is a fire anomaly unit and our first of this combo. She has a decent base attack of 863 and her scaling stat is energy regen. This means at max level she will have an energy regen stat of 1.56. This is really useful for her as having her EX up and ready when needed is essential for her kit's functionality. When leveling her up, focus on her core passive first, then chain and EX, then basics, and assist and dodge don't matter too much. Now let's check her out in game. Burnice's unique kit effect is the heat bar top left. When consuming energy with her EX special attacks, Burnice will accumulate heat at a rate of 1 energy for 1.4 heat. At 50 heat, she enters the nitro fuel cocktail state, which only disappears when dropping to exactly 0 heat. What's nice is this heat bar will be maxed at the start of every fight, so there's no ramping up needed, she just works from the get-go. Now, this nitro state lets us do two things. It first will give us a brand new basic attack. By holding the basic, we will spin around and perform Mixed Flame Blend, consuming 20 of our heat. And I mean, we can keep going if we keep holding down that basic key, but we don't want to do that, and we also don't want to always use our heat for this basic. A lot of Burnice's power with her consumption is the Scorched effect. When using that special basic attack from earlier, or an EX, a chain, or an ultimate whenever in the nitro state, Burnice will apply Scorched to the target's hit, and this will stay on them indefinitely as long as she always stays in this state. And when other allies hit enemies that are Scorched, it will consume 8 of Burnice's heat to trigger a burst of fire damage called Afterburn that counts as assist attack damage. This does a lot of damage, it can crit, and it also applies Anomaly. That's right, off-field Anomaly application, and it can even activate the Burn Anomaly effect. This Afterburn tick can happen every 1.5 seconds. The damage from Afterburn is increased based on her Anomaly proficiency, 30% max at 300 AP, which is our goal now. So we ideally want to use heat mostly for those Afterburn procs, but that special basic is still useful. For example, at the start of a fight you start at 100 heat. Using an EX would waste a ton of heat generation from consuming energy, whereas using a special basic would at least use some and still apply Scorched. Another example is when enemies spawn in after you wipe out a wave. You might not have your EX special, and in that case, you should hold basic to apply Scorched there. Now her EX specials, how do they work? She in fact has two different ones. One with one of her flamethrowers, and the second EX uses both of her flamethrowers. Pressing the special button once uses the first EX, but if you tap it again quickly, you get the second EX. Both of these EX specials can be tapped to shoot off a quick burst with little energy loss, but both can also be held to continuously shoot fire, and then they both end in the same big fire blast. The difference between the two is the first one costs less energy, does less damage, but you can move during it. This allows you to reposition in a fight, but it also means you never end the EX if you want and have the energy, since moving around resets the duration. The second EX naturally does more damage but costs a whole lot of energy. We will want to use this though in most cases to expend as much energy as possible quickly, to do a lot of burst damage, gain a ton of heat, before sending her off field to do her thing. You cannot move around during the second EX though, and the iframes are on the start of the spray and the fire blast. So using the first or second depends on what you want. Don't have much energy, use the first one to quickly apply Scorch to enemies. Want the most damage, use the second one. Against an enemy with scary attacks, use the first one to reposition. She can mix and match as she goes. Burnice also has a few ways of getting to that second EX without going through the first one. This saves you a bit of energy in the transition from EX1 to EX2, but takes more time as you're using more abilities. So anyways, she can perform her EX2 directly after the finishing part of her special basic, so you hold basic in the nitro state, then hold EX. She can also perform this after her chain attack, but it will mean she is the one finishing it if you want to use this. So after the chain ends on her, she can hold the special button for her extended EX2. And finally, it also works after an assist follow-up. You parry with Burnice, press your attack button, then press the special button to unleash her EX2. So 3 different ways of skipping her first EX, but the fastest way to unleash her EX2 is still going to be double tapping your special key. The only other notable part of her abilities is her ultimate. Boy is it notable. Not only does it have an insane damage multiplier, it also has some amazing benefits for her. And when we get that update that lets everyone ult, it's going to be even better for Burnice teams. So ulting on Burnice makes you leap into the air, but it will also let you trigger a quick assist despite her not being a support. If you activate this, Burnice will continue shooting flames even with a different character on field. But the real source is that ulting on Burnice accumulates 50 heat. And 50 heat is the equivalent of consuming about 35 energy, so this is essential for her nitro state uptime. So in her teams, I definitely recommend using ult on her as first priority until we get to the ultimate change update. The final part of her kit we haven't seen is her additional ability, because yes, her kit just has to get better. When you have an Anomaly unit or Sons of Calydon member in your team, she can activate this, and activating it gives 2 effects. First, she gets an insane 65% Anomaly build-up increase to her special basic attack, to her EX specials, and to her Afterburn damage ticks, which again are those big off-field damage procs. If that wasn't enough, Burn gets a 3-second duration increase with her on the team. The way you want to play Burnice is using her double EX combo, maybe some other quick abilities, for a lot of burst damage. You then swap off and let her Scorch State keep activating those Afterburn damage ticks. It does so much damage over the duration of the fight whilst also accumulating Anomaly for even more damage. Make sure to keep her heat state up by reusing EX when it gets low and using her ultimate when available. But make sure you don't have too much heat when using ult, as any heat over 50 will be wasted. And remember, she has that quick assist from ulting. Having her swap in with a defensive assist or chain attack into EX2 is also great for a lot of burst damage while simultaneously letting her accumulate heat again. Applying Scorched with her special nitro basic attacks is also important here and there if low on energy, high on heat, or facing a bunch of enemies. So juggling energy and heat and burn is her playstyle, and it's a whole lot of fun. She does some destructive burst DPS on top of amazing damage over time, and when you do it right, you can just keep rocking Anomaly after Disorder after Anomaly and just delete any enemy. It honestly feels so OP sometimes. Now, I'm going to go quickly through her Mindscapes and then get to her build. M1 increases the heat limit to 140 whilst also giving you an extra 40 when starting combat to account for the increase. This makes using ult whenever much easier as you'll rarely waste heat now. We also get a buff to those Afterburn procs, which makes special basics less valuable in heat to damage conversion. And the Afterburns also do more Anomaly buildup now, which is just another great bonus. M2 gives stacking pen ratio to any ally that hits an enemy after activating Afterburn. It stacks up to 20%, which is decent. It does give her some team damage amping utility on top of sub DPS damage, which is cool. M4 gives her crit rate on her EX and assist attack, which also means her Afterburn ticks, since as we know, Afterburn counts as assist attack damage. It's a bit weird if you're not already speccing into crit though, as 30% CR alone is not very useful. You can now also extend the EX by 1 second, but I don't think you'll really use this. Finally, M6 does a whole lot of random stuff, but I'll explain it in basic terms. On her EX2, she now procs a ton of extra special Afterburn effects every 0.5 seconds. She also ignores 25% fire res during this EX, and that applies to any Afterburns or burns during it. And finally, when the Fire Blast hits from her EX2, she does 18 procs worth of burn damage, and this can happen once every 20 seconds. Basically, bomber damage. Onto drive discs, and it's insanely simple. Here we use the Chaos Jazz set that was made specifically for her. She excels in off-field damage, EX specials, and assist attack damage, aka her Afterburn damage. This gives it all, and you shouldn't really run anything else. For example, 4 Freedom Blues won't work great on her because a lot of her Anomaly contribution is from Afterburn, which won't really get the benefit of Freedom Blues 4-piece. Likewise with her ultimate, which you don't really want to use after an EX2 as it can lead to heat wastage. She also has a lot of build-up in her kit, so getting damage percent from Chaos Jazz will provide more benefit. The Q-piece drive discs opt for any damage-oriented ones like 2 Freedom Blues or 2 Hormone Punk. Though if you feel your damage is sufficient and you want more energy from in-game testing, then you should swap to Swing Jazz. Having her heat uptime maximized is way more important than a few damage percent difference, so I personally like Swing Jazz. Main stats will want you going Anomaly Proficiency on 4, Fire Damage or Pen on 5th, and Attack Percent or Anomaly Mastery on 6th. The fifth partition depends on what you got really, but also your 6th slot and Mindscapes and weapon. For example, if you're at M0 Burnice, go fire damage, but if you have her signature Wenjin, which gives a ton of damage and attack, then 10% on the 5th slot is fantastic. Likewise, if you have her M2, then 10% is best. For the 6th slot, Anomaly Mastery is best if you're always maximizing your rotations and using your burns to the fullest in a disordered comp, but attack percent is completely viable as you won't necessarily always do that. And if you're playing her in a non-disorder team for whatever reason, then Anomaly Mastery will fall off due to burns overwriting each other and wasting damage ticks with no disorder to blow them up. Now a stat goal for this build would be to aim for around 300 to 400 AP depending on your Wenjin's main stat and substat luck. Anomaly Mastery is 118 to 153, and that's just if you have AM on 6th drive disk slot or not. For attack, aim for 2.5k at least, and you can get to heights of over 3k if running attack on 6th slot with good substats. There is also a crit build going around, but it's only viable in mono fire. The reason it works is because her kit can still crit, and her multipliers are kinda nutty alongside Inferno Metal just being an OP drive disk set. But a major reason is because her burns will be overwritten or share anomaly contribution with her fire allies, making burns very weak. But in most scenarios, you just want to focus on anomaly and not go this crit route, especially in disorder comps, which is where she's intended to shine. To complete her build, you'll need a worthy Wenjin, so let's check out her signature one. Flamemaker Shaker boasts a high base attack on top of a 30% attack main stat. It will give 3 different buffs to the wearer. First, an off-field energy regen increase, perfect for her energy issues. Second, when hitting an enemy with an EX or assist, which counts those afterburns, you get a 6-second stacking damage percent buff up to 10 stacks, for a total of 35% damage. And these stacks keep refreshing. Since Afterburn can proc every 1.5 seconds, you maximize this constantly if you're playing her correctly. And third, when above 5 of these stacks, you gain a final 50 anomaly proficiency buff. Now luckily we have other options like the amazing Battle Pass Wenjin that gives combat attack and damage. We can also use Fusion Compiler thanks to our 2EX combo that gives us an immediate double stack. Rainforest Gourmet and Weeping Gemini are final decent options. Now finally, Roaring Ride. She can activate all 3 effects with that long EX, and even at max power it barely lasts long enough to benefit your Afterburn as it's only 5 seconds long after getting the buff. Afterburn is a lot of damage and accumulates a lot of anomaly over the fight. Do not ignore it. She cannot just spam her long EXs whenever you like. And if maximizing heat, you can't make good use of the buffs for the ult anyway. I think it is pretty weak on her. Finally, I will say that although some of the Wenjins are not too far behind in damage to her signature weapon, that energy regen is a very nice quality of life that can't be represented in damage calculation. Finally, some teams. Burnice really wants a disordered team. We have 2 options, a physical disorder one or an electric disorder comp. When we get more anomaly units of different elements, we can vary it up. So her best team in my opinion is Lucy or Caesar, Jane, Burnice. Burnice applies a ton of off-field burn. Jane repeatedly procs assault in between for massive disordered chunks, and Lucy boosts both of them. Caesar gives bigger buffs than Lucy but only to the on-field unit. But she can still be just as strong or better when considering Burnice's substantial on-field burst damage on top of the boost to Jane's damage. This team is disgusting and to me feels like the strongest team in the game right now. Piper works as a replacement to Jane, but Jane really is incredible for this team due to her power as an off-field anomaly spammer. Piper does not have nearly the same assault frequency. The shock variant would be Rena and Grace instead. Rena and Grace would both supply a lot of shock application, allowing for a similar effect to Jane's on-field presence. Still not as strong as Jane, but a decent option if you have nothing else. And even though I much prefer Disorder, I will mention the Monofire team to account for more team types and playstyles. So the Monofire team of Lucy, Soldier 11 Burnice exists, where Burnice acts as a crit sub DPS that perma-enables the Inferno Metal set on the team. If you don't have a Caesar for example as a second support, it's still viable to instead have a sub DPS alongside Soldier 11, because Burnice spews out damage regardless and both will be boosted by Lucy anyway. Though not having a stunner feels a bit bad, so maybe Khalida can take Lucy's place. To be honest though, I think this team only works because we don't have many units right now to make better teams. I hope this guide helps you Burnice enjoys. Please like and sub if it did, and let me know if you're pulling and how many polychromes you're going to spend for her. Thank you so much for watching, it means a lot to me, and have a Guoba day.